So we're just going to talk about how to make practice a regular part of your day. And as I go into this, you're going to see that it's a much bigger topic than just how can I do this one thing on a regular basis. Because if it was that easy, everyone would be doing it. In fact, there are a lot of other things that we'd be doing on a regular basis, right, that we should be doing, but we're not. So hopefully this will have something to offer you, even if you don't want to meditate every day, but maybe you want to do other things or just change who you are as a person. So, I mean, some examples are some people want to exercise more frequently, or if you're a student, you need to study on a regular basis, or maybe you've got a novel you want to write. You know, you got to get around to writing the next chapter, or the first chapter, or the first word, or doing your taxes instead of writing another extension. So these are all different types of self-improvement, right? Because who we are as people is not what we say, especially in the day of social media. We're projecting our identity on, you know, putting something witty on Facebook and like, that's who I am. But we know, especially as we go on in life, that who we really are as people is not based on what we say we are or what we believe in, but our actions, what we do forms our life. Because who we are is not really a noun, but it's an adjective or an adverb. It's our actions and how we affect other people around us. What's the mark we're going to leave on this planet through our life? And after we're gone, what's left behind? It won't be what we said, but what we did. So changing your daily schedule is the most important part of it, because a year is composed of 365 days and a life is composed of hopefully many, many years. But we can only do one day at a time. So learning how to meditate on a regular basis is a big deal. But we have two main obstacles for creating a new habit in our life or doing something regularly, and that's entropy and inertia, right? And we can define entropy as a lack of order or a lack of predictability, or a tendency towards disorder or falling apart, or randomness. That's just an easy way to remember entropy is randomness. And we can think about our daily schedule at home. And as I say these things, my intention is not to insult anybody. I'm probably going to be insulting myself more than anyone else. But think about you have your job, unless you're retired. And if you are, congratulations. But let's say you still work for a living. And you probably have a lot of order in terms of getting to your job on time, doing your work, and then getting home on time. But ask yourself, how much order is there in your time off? Once you get home, do you have a schedule for home, or is it basically a series of random events? And they might look the same every day because you have your routine, but it's basically whatever you feel like doing when you get home, whatever you feel like. And we're talking about two different parts of ourselves now. We have our executive function mind, the planner, the one that makes the intelligent decisions, that sets long-term goals. We can call that the cool system. And then we have the hot system, which is based on our base needs, our survival instincts, our emotional state, the one that wants satisfaction now, that wants pleasure now, that wants rest now, that wants food now. We can call that our hot system. So if we go home and our day is not ordered, we're really falling into our hot system and that sense of randomness. Whatever's on TV, whatever's in the fridge, or wherever we stopped on the way home. And that affects everything else in our life. So, you know, our job is going well, but the rest of our life is sort of a random series of events. And it can go that way for years. So let's go over and talk about inertia. What is inertia? Inertia is a tendency to not move, to not change, to not do anything. And of course, this terminology is taken from physics, but we can apply it to our lives. And the first thing I think of when I hear the word inertia is me sitting on the couch watching NCIS, which happens to be my latest favorite series. You know, it's like, once I get on that couch and turn on NCIS on Netflix, it's not just one episode, it's a whole chain of episodes, right? And I'm not changing, I'm not moving off that couch. And that's a short-term view of inertia, right? But if we take the long-term view, we might reflect on ourselves, or you might know someone like this who, do you know someone who they haven't changed a bit since high school or since college, or there's been no personal development or change at all? And I'm just saying this as a point of reflection, right? I'm not criticizing any individual person here, but just as an example, do we know people who they enter in the same type of relationship over and over and over again, or they've been miserable at their job for 20 years and haven't done anything to change it, or they keep talking about how they want to learn how to play the piano, but they just never did anything, and it's been 20 years and you're just tired of hearing about it, right? You just want to say, shut up. You're never going to do it. This happens with family too. You have family members who they always do the same bickering or complaining about the other family member behind their back, and year after year, every Thanksgiving is the same darn thing. You know, there's this personal inertia. So different things like that can take over our life. So we can define personal success as basically counteracting the inertia and counteracting the entropy, which in the beginning can be a lot of work. So starting a new habit is tough because we're trying to put energy into our life, getting out of that inertia, and then changing our actions. So going from random motion to ordered activity in our day. So it takes some effort to do that. So maybe in the past you thought, I want to meditate every day. And the first day you do a great job, you sit for whatever, 45 minutes. And then the next day you get a 15-minute session in, and third day, nothing. And then 3 months later, nothing. And then a year later, nothing. But so it took a lot of work and it just didn't last. But the thing is, if you can keep it going, and we're going to talk about how to keep it going, it becomes effortless because it becomes a habit. It becomes subconscious or unconscious activity. But one thing to consider, maybe one of the most important things to consider, is why do you want to do this? Why do you want to meditate every day? And it's a really important point to ask. And I find myself asking students that once in a while when they come to me and say, I'm having a hard time meditating or building it into my life. And I always get to a point where I ask them, do you really want to do this? Why do you want to meditate? It's one of those things that, it's one of those few things in today's world that doesn't really give you anything back like other things do. It's not entertaining. No one's paying you to do it. There's nothing to show off. I mean, you could wear your beads if you want, you know, or whatever. You could give some indicator that you're a spiritual person, but there's nothing sexy about it. Nobody really gives a shit if you meditate. Nobody really cares. Your boss at work doesn't care, you know, unless they're part of the mindfulness movement, then they just want you to be more productive in your miserable job. I'm just saying that to be inflammatory. But so wanting to meditate is a purely inside job. The inspiration has to come from within. Do you really want to do it? You know, maybe you read a book about it or saw it in a magazine that it's a good thing to do, that you could be 10% happier or more successful or whatever it is. But do you really have that urge? Because I'm sure we all have things we do every day at home that we really love to do, that we have a high desire for. Does anyone have anything like that you have no problem doing it every day? Don? Reading, absolutely. The brain loves to learn. We get a little bit of a dopamine hit from learning new things, which encourages to have new experiences and learn, and reading is a great way. Anyone else have an activity? Knitting? Absolutely, right. So you see the final product, but there's an internal process as you're doing it, right? It's meditative, right? So I would ask all of you, do you really, really want to meditate every day? And of course, learning how to meditate properly so that it feels good, and not feels good in a way that a beer feels good, or getting high or whatever, you know, but it feels good internally, versus it's a self-torture method where you're going to restrain your mind a certain way, or that you're measuring yourself against a better version of yourself you have in your mind. Like, I want to be a better person, and I'm going to improve, you know. We need to learn how to meditate in a way that's really nourishing, fulfilling, natural, and that brings true peace over time. And it's really just basically about getting good instructions. So we're talking about self-compassion at this point in terms of, do you really want to meditate for the right reason? Because again, it can be self-aggressive, doing it for the wrong reason. But asking yourself to meditate every day can also be compassionate in terms of treating yourself like a coach. Say an athlete hires a coach to train them to be the best at whatever that sport is, and that coach is going to be kind of tough on them. If they can't miss practice, they can't show up late, they have to give it their all, leave it on the field or whatever it is, and they push them to their hardest every day so that they can be the best version of themselves that they want to be in that sport. And so if you want to meditate every day, there has to be that room for that aspect of you to say, I really want to do this. And when you miss a day, it's okay to feel bad about it. It's okay to have a little bit of remorse about it and go, why did I miss today? What didn't I do quite right to give myself that time? Feel a little bit bad about it because you know it's going against the goals you've set for yourself. And let that give you some energy. Let that give you some energy to do better the next day. And that's really compassionate. It's not self-aggression, right? So there's that fine line. So as I said earlier, from this point on, if you're not really interested, if you just realized, actually I don't know if I want to meditate every day, I don't know if it's something I want to focus on, that's okay, because all of this can be applied to doing whatever else you want to accomplish in life, right? So I want to talk a little bit more about the entropy thing, the randomness in our life, because if you don't set a goal and you don't schedule it into your life, as human beings in this society, we're basically leaving ourselves up to two things, and that's our typical habits, but also our external influences. And this is where this conversation gets bigger. It's not just about how do I meditate every day, but it's about what is going on in life these days. In terms of external influences, we can say that if we don't take control of our life, there are a lot of people lined up to do that for us through television, media, internet. The way food is set up in grocery stores is absolutely designed to manipulate your mind, to make the decisions for you for what you buy and how often you buy it. And not just about food, but what you listen to, what goes into your mind, the way you vote. So many aspects of ourselves actually is being influenced in an invisible way, in a way that's invisible to our conscious mind. So if you leave your life to randomness, to how you spend your time and where you spend it, you're basically serving those forces instead of your own life. And really what it comes down to these days is that a disordered life is really the life of a prisoner or a slave, you know. Because as long as you're showing up to your job on time and making your paycheck, who's lined up to cash in on your paycheck, right? Your rent, your mortgage, your phone bill, your health insurance, your car insurance, food, entertainment, all those people are going to line up to serve your base needs. You got your caffeine, marijuana, alcohol, whatever else. Everyone's lined up. And even if you're at the end of your life and you're done with all of that stuff, they're still going to either reach into your wallet or into your insurance to pay for your hospital bed that last month you're in the hospital. And even when you're dead, they're lined up to get the rest of your money out of your account to pay for your coffin and your gravestone and for the expense of your funeral, right? I know this sounds really dour, doesn't it? But most people don't think this way, and they live a life of randomness. And they're, you know, as long as they're showing up to work, nobody cares what you do outside of work, as long as you can pay your bills. And if you die an early death and you're gone, we're all replaceable. They'll find someone else. So nobody really cares, except the people who love you, right? And who loves you most but yourself, right? So it's a good consideration to have, that if you order your life, you're actually going to break free and have some influence over yourself and actually get to where you want to go in your life. Because maybe you're lucky enough to have a career that's fulfilling your innermost inspiration about who you want to be in this lifetime. It can be anything, but if it's fulfilling you, that's great. And you get to go home and then have your randomness because you're really resting, because you did your mission in life at your job. But many of us don't get to do that. That who we really are needs to be expressed outside of our job, right?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What a difficulty that comes up for me, you're describing order and randomness, and when I get up and go to work, spend the day at work, my day is pretty ordered. When I come home, it doesn't sound appealing to me to have more order.
Mm-hmm.
I want to let go of schedules, order, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do run into trouble not getting done the things that I really want to do for myself, because I don't want to have more schedule to my life. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, and I think I'll touch on it as I go along, because there's a way to order the disorder in your life that you need to feel rejuvenated again.
Okay.
So there's going to be a balance, right? Here's the thing about order, it doesn't have to be strict or complete either. I'm going to use an example from another field that I work in, and that's psychokinesis, or mind over matter. And there's a type of thing I do where I teach people how to move small objects with their mind. And what we've figured out is what's really happening is that when awareness is focusing on the object, consciousness is really getting the molecules of air around the object, which normally move in a random direction, to start to order themselves, and they push against the object. This might sound strange if you haven't seen this before or heard about it. It's called the observer effect, and it's well known in physics and quantum physics. But it's not that all the air molecules are moving in an orderly fashion, it's just enough start moving in an orderly fashion to push on the object and get it to move. And that's the kind of order we're really talking about in our life, that we could just go to the lowest common denominator where we pay our bills and then we die. And meanwhile we fulfill our base instincts. Or we have a little bit of order where we pay our bills, but then we write that book, or we learn to play the piano, or we become the artist, or we knit amazing things, or compose music, or whatever it is. A little bit of order can get us to that point of fulfillment. So it's not absolute structure, but just some order, so that it's not completely random, but there's something that pulls your life in a direction. Like, what is your goal every day? So if you meditate every day or want to meditate every day, you must have a goal that in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, that you've had some insights about your life and about reality, right? And it's just about having a little bit of order every day to do the practice every day. That's what we're talking about. And it's so going back to making it a habit, that's the easiest way to do it, and I'll talk about how to do that. But habit is so powerful, and I thought of this example when I was designing this talk. And one thing I do is when we use dishes at home, I tend to fill up the sink even though the dishwasher is right there. But eventually everything's in the dishwasher and the dishwasher runs. But for 2 or 3 days after the dishes have been washed in the machine, I still go in and reach in the drawer for a fork, even though it's empty. All the silverware is in the dishwasher. And what do? I open the dishwasher and pull out a single fork and use it, and then come back to the kitchen when I'm done, dump it in the sink. And then 2 hours later, I need a snack. I come in and I reach in the drawer for the fork, which is still empty, right? That's the power of habit. It's absolutely effortless. But I'm going to come back to that example in a moment, because we want to do that kind of effortlessness with developing the habit of meditation. But the biggest challenge we have in terms of developing a habit and maintaining it until it becomes natural and effortless is something called ego depletion. Have any of you heard of ego depletion before? Okay. So it's something that's been studied for a while now in psychology, and it's something that we all undergo, but we're usually not aware of it, especially if you haven't heard that phrase before. And it's the idea that willpower is a finite resource that we have every day. We have this much willpower when we wake up in the morning, and as we go through the day, we have less and less and less. And we require willpower for our executive functioning, for planning, for memory, for goal setting, for that kind of thinking. We don't need it when we just pull over at a donut shop and eat the donut because we're just hungry and cranky and whatever. We just do that. That's not executive function. That requires no willpower. And so they found out that there are certain kinds of activities that wear us out, wear out our willpower, and that's making a lot of choices, restraining our emotions, so forcing yourself to behave when you're at a terrible meeting at work, not be critical, or just restrain how you feel. Being on a first date with someone can be exhausting because you're putting on a good face, you're trying to be reasonable and nice, or the holidays with family can be very depleting. Meditating in certain styles can be very depleting also. Do you know that style of meditation where the instruction says, follow your breath. If you get distracted, notice that you're distracted and come right back to the breath right away? Immensely depleting. That's why you usually feel exhausted after a session of that. That your decision-making ability after that is gone. You're just toast. And you just go and usually get whatever's easiest out of the fridge or whatever, or go take a nap, or you need to go watch TV. Because that process of watching yourself with a high level of vigilance, maintaining calmness, coming back, you're analyzing yourself over and over, moment by moment, that's exhausting to the will. So you run out of willpower as you do that kind of meditation. So it's just something to know about. And it's actually, as a side note, it's something to be careful of if you go to a spiritual teacher and they teach you these types of meditations, and they follow the meditation session with a talk like we're doing right now, and they're putting ideas in your mind. Your ability to filter what to believe and what not to believe is toast. So you're very impressionable to a teacher when you've done that kind of ego depleting meditation right beforehand. So as spiritual seekers, it's just something to be aware of. Okay, so some examples of how you behave when your ego is depleted is, have you ever been to a restaurant and you're depleted and you just tell the server, well, what are the specials? Well, what do you think is the best one? And then they basically order for you. You can't even look at a menu. You're just too exhausted. Where you end up being brutally honest with a friend about how you feel or what you think about something. You're probably depleted at that moment when you chose to be brutally honest with someone. You're planning on cooking a healthy dinner at home. The food's there in the fridge, but instead you stop over at a fast food restaurant on the way home because you're like, to hell with it. I'm hungry now. You were almost there, but you couldn't make it all the way because you were depleted. And then when you get home, you have plans of meditating or doing something else like that, but instead you just lay on the couch and turn on the TV. Your willpower was toast. And then where you sit down and just scroll through Facebook for an hour straight. There's something addictive about it, right? All the information, your brain's getting turned on by that. You're getting this dopamine drip, but it takes very little effort. You don't have to concentrate very much. But even then, you're making small choices along the way. Your emotions are being tossed about with every scene that you see on Facebook. Oh, look, here's a kid who won a hot dog eating competition. And 3 seconds later, oh, look, here's people starving in Africa. And inside of you, your emotions are going haywire. It's very depleting that way, but you can't break away from it. Right? And then a big cause of ego depletion is low glucose levels, which is ironic, right? Because we need self-control to eat good food, but we need to eat food to have enough glucose for our brain. If it runs out, we get hungry. So it's that border of eating well to keep our brain maintained, but if we wait too long, our brain is going to go for the worst kind of food to recharge itself. So when you get home and you have plans for meditating, if you're depleted, you're probably not going to meditate. And I think that's the case for most people who have plans of meditating after they get home from work. Have you all tried that? You wake up in the morning, I'm going to meditate when I get home. And then we all beat ourselves up because we didn't do it, right? And the thing is, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. You're depleted and you didn't know it. And basically your decision-making ability and the ability to stick with your goals, it's wiped out. It probably got wiped out sometime around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They did a study in Israeli prisons years ago, with the parole board. And they studied which prisoners received parole, so they got to leave prison early, and which didn't, according to when their hearings were held. So some of the prisoners showed up in front of the parole board in the morning, right after breakfast time, some mid-morning, some right before lunch, and then some right after lunch, midday, late in the day. And the parolees, and they measured this across people with different kinds of sentences or similar crimes, so they could really even this out. Most of the people who received parole, I think it's 70%, they got a parole right after the people on the parole board had breakfast or lunch. If they showed up for their parole hearing right before lunch or late in the day, when the brains of the parole board members are depleted of energy, they got the big no, go back to jail. Which is really astonishing, right? This is affecting people's lives. Whether or not the parole board members were hungry or not were the deciding factor if these prisoners would spend an extra 5, 10, or 20 years in jail. So this is a big deal that most people don't know about. So it's something to think about with anything you're trying to accomplish in daily life. If you can identify the fact that you have a certain amount of willpower in the day, that it runs out at certain periods, and after that period has come, you're done, you can start to work with it to be successful in your day. So the first key is you want to start tracking your day. You might sit down tonight when you get home and pull out a piece of paper and a pen and just draw out your typical weekday or your working day. What time do you get up? What do you do? When do you go to work? What is your habit like at work? When do you eat there? When do you not eat there? When do you get hungry? What kind of meetings do you attend? And you're going to start to see by the activities you go through, when do you actually start feeling exhausted? When you can't concentrate anymore? When you start making poor choices? You start to track that on paper, and then you can plan ahead so that before you hit that dead point at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and go for the candy bar and the candy machine, instead you've already pre-packed a bunch of healthy snacks. And you know that, okay, 4 o'clock's rolling around, I'm about to get depleted, I'm going to put some healthy food in me, and that's going to raise the glucose in my body from a healthy source and keep me from getting depleted so quickly. And that means that when you get home, you're not going to be starving, you're not going to be unable to concentrate, and you can maintain the commitment you made to yourself to meditate when you get home, right? The easier way to build meditation into your daily practice is to meditate in the morning before the depletion even starts happening, right? Now that means, again, planning your head, and that's where the order comes in, really scheduling your time early in the day. What time are you going to wake up? And working with habits. And I'm just going to talk briefly about what a habit is composed of. And this comes from a book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. There's 3 components, and that's the cue, like the signal that gets you started, the routine, and the reward. So let's use a work example. Every day at work at 2 o'clock, you realize that you feel snacky. That's your cue. Your routine is to go to the candy machine, get the candy bar, and on the way back you stop at your friend's desk and chat for about 20 minutes and then go back to your desk. And your reward is that you feel refreshed, you feel less bored or whatever. The way to work with that habit, let's say you happen to be wanting to lose weight, is your cue is 2 o'clock, you kind of get bored or whatever and maybe a little peckish, and that's your cue, but now you've brought a healthy snack, it's at the fridge in the kitchen at work. So instead of the candy, you go to the fridge and you still stop at your friend's desk and chat for 20 minutes, going back to your desk, and you still get the same reward. You've got the glucose back in your body and you got to chat with your friend, you feel less bored and a little more reinvigorated, right? So let's transfer this to your morning. And let's say the first thing you do, your cue in the morning is getting out of bed, and your routine happens to be getting a cup of coffee. I mean, that's the first thing I do before I do anything. I can't function, right? And your reward is that you feel invigorated and awake and ready to go about the rest of your day. Maybe hop in the shower and go to work. Well, what if you could build that into your meditation routine, where your cue is you wake up, you go make a cup of coffee, but instead of sitting at the table and scrolling on Facebook while you have your coffee, you go sit on your meditation cushion. Just sit on it, have your morning coffee. And when you've finished your coffee, you put the coffee cup down and continue sitting. And you'll naturally unfold into whatever technique that you've learned that you prefer. So you've built it in. It's automatic at that point. And maybe you only have time to meditate for 10, 15, 20 minutes, that's fine. Or if you have coffee and breakfast together, take your bowl of oatmeal to your meditation cushion and do mindful eating. Eat your breakfast that way. Automatic habit, right? And you can do that at the end of the day. You come home from work, and many of us will come home and we just grab some crap out of the fridge, go to the TV, turn it on. It's a transition activity, right? We're transitioning from work to nighttime at home. But instead, you grab your snack, even if it's crappy, go to your meditation cushion, eat it, and so we're combating that depletion by feeding glucose to our brain, and still sit there after you've snacked, and just sit for 10 minutes meditating. And then you get the reward. And then if you want to watch TV, but at least you've fulfilled your commitment to yourself to meditate during that time. Even better is doing something called pre-commitment, where you take on a task or do something to strengthen your commitment in the future to do this activity. So you could, in the morning, prepare a healthy snack, put it in a container so it doesn't have to be refrigerated, and put it on your meditation cushion. So when you come home from work, you don't even have to go to the kitchen, the place of temptation. You avoid it entirely. Go straight to your cushion, sit down, open it, eat your snack, and then sit there and meditate afterward. And maybe you'll find yourself meditating for 20 or 30 minutes. And then you can go to the kitchen and start preparing dinner. But you won't be starving at that point because you had your after work snack, right? I know I'm talking about food a lot. I mean, that's one of my issues, but I think it's every American's issue. It's where we run to for solace from our suffering. Another cue that we could use is a location cue. So in most Americans' homes, the television takes a central place in the house, right? This is a modern thing. This has only been 80 years or so. Before then, what had the central position in any home was usually a spiritual shrine across the globe, right? A shrine, a meditation area, a place for prayer, a place for worshiping your ancestors. That was the central focus in the home. That was the top priority. And you can gauge your personal priorities in your home by the way your home is designed and how you decorate it and where you put the TV set, right? So you can do the same thing with your meditation cushion. If meditation is your priority, maybe TV is number one, meditation is number two, you could put your cushion in a place of honor in your home, or a place where it's in your line of sight. So maybe it's in your TV room, or in a corner there, and you put flowers, you put something nice there. It's in your field of vision. It's a reminder pulling at you, like, oh, I better meditate before I watch TV. One thing I like to do is, in my meditation, my personal meditation has seasons. Sometimes I'm steady and sometimes I'm not, and sometimes I meditate in the morning, sometimes in the middle of the night. And I know when I'm entering a season of meditating in the middle of the night, I put my cushion next to my bed. So when I wake up at 3 in the morning, all I have to do is roll out of bed in the darkness and put my butt on the cushion. And I can sit there for an hour in this glorious state of mind that usually occurs at 3 in the morning. And when I'm done, I just lift my body back into bed and fall back asleep. And it's the easiest way for me to maintain my commitment. If you want to do the morning thing, even before you have your first cup of coffee, you roll out of bed, maybe you set your alarm for a little earlier, and just land on your meditation cushion right there next to your bed and do it. Just get it done. And then go have your coffee or breakfast and go on the rest of your day, right? I think the most important point here, though, is recognizing that you do experience ego depletion through your day. Plan ahead, know that you get depleted about the same time each day, and come up with a strategy so that you either meditate before the depletion has occurred, or how to manage the depletion along the way with feeding yourself right and getting it in before you fully collapse at the end of the day. Because if you wait till after dinner, chances are really low unless it was a really great dinner and somehow you've reinvigorated yourself. Which really comes back to, you might run out of fuel, but they have found that it's not a end-all be-all. You can reinvigorate yourself by remembering your inspiration to meditate. That's why in the Buddhist tradition, there are a lot of ways of reflecting on yourself. You could reflect on the fact that you're mortal and that the end of your life is coming. That's a scary way to do it. You could reflect on how you want to be a loving person, a better person, so you can be kind and patient and generous to those around you. Reflect on those virtues can actually make you excited to meditate. So at the end of the day, if you're depleted, just contemplating these things for 5 minutes over your cup of coffee while you're sitting on your cushion, you put the coffee down and you linger and you'll find yourself meditating because you've just squeezed out a little more willpower in that moment. And then there are other things you could do, like you could burn incense. Incense means different things to different people, but incense is a timing device. If you know a stick of incense burns for about a half hour, you don't use a watch, light the incense. You say, I will not move from this cushion until the incense has burned out. Even if I'm totally distracted or whatever, I'm going to keep my butt on the cushion for that time. Incense can have a spiritual quality, whatever spirituality means to you. That sense of sacredness, burning a stick of incense can do that, even if it's completely artificial. The way you feel about it has everything to do with the way you behave. For some people, it's an offering to deities, to their beloved family members who've passed on, etc. So it can take on that aspect for you. So using these little tools to design your little meditation area, turning it into a physical cue can become a powerful force for developing a daily practice. So at the end of the day, just to wrap this up, it comes down to just a couple of things. First, what's your big why? Why do you want to meditate in such a strong way to do it every day? Do you really want to do it? Because if not, you won't do it. And then just find something else you want to do in life. It's fine. Just stop beating yourself up for not meditating every day. It's not your thing. But if it is, recognize that you get ego depleted every day. Your willpower is a finite resource. Plan ahead for when it's going to run out so that you either meditate before it happens or that you can manage it after it happens. I already described how to manage it. And then after a while, it will become a habit and it will take no effort whatsoever, and you'll be meditating every day because it's built into your schedule automatically. Just the way brushing your teeth before bed is, or doing your nails, or I'm trying to think of things I and my wife do. Exercising every day. Like funny, I have a hard time meditating every day, but I have no problem getting on the elliptical machine for 20 minutes every morning, right? Like that comes easy. But if I think back, it wasn't easy when I first started trying to do it, right? So make it automatic. But if you understand ego depletion, I think that's the secret reason everybody struggles with meditating regularly, because they don't know that it happens. And it is an extremely powerful force in our life. So if you can manage it, you can accomplish anything you set out to do. Because then your executive functioning has a chance, and then you order the way you behave in life, right? So I don't know if I actually answered your question, Kathy, but does that give you a flavor? So it's
ego depletion is I think one of the reasons I don't want to have a schedule or certain things I have to do when I'm not at work is maybe because I come home and I'm depleted. And so it's like I don't want to have to do anything.
Yeah, exactly. When you're depleted, you actually have no ability to make decisions, to make a choice about what you want to do. It's gone and it's automatic. You can't think your way out of it. So you might try preventing or slowing down that depletion by having a snack on your way home. And the thing is, you might still decide to do nothing, but you're doing it from a place of consciousness instead of just depletion. Then it's a real choice you have, and you maintain control over your life. So, okay, I kept us late. I'm sorry about that, but hopefully that was worthwhile and that you enjoyed the meditation. It's easier to meditate with people, so coming to Mayu is a great way to do it. I have a free online video course, so you can meditate with me face to face. It's on my website. Just play me for half an hour and we'll meditate together. That's about it. Thank you for your time. Yeah. Okay, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.